Good morning. I'm Colonel Gary Kralberg, the White Bear Lake American Legion Post 168, Second Vice Commander, and I welcome you uh, to this great, wonderful day that we are blessed to have in the wonderful place called Minnesota. A small joke while we have a 2-minute warning. When I was working in the Pentagon, I was standing there talking with some people, and I managed $2.5 billion of funds. And this guy behind me said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Minnesota." And he says, "I got that." It was then Lieutenant General Paul Nakasone. And at that time, he figured out then that he grew up 3 blocks from where I live in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. So pretty cool, small world. Uh, and obviously, and as he has a chance to talk later on, it'll be very interesting. Uh, I'm just so honored that we have this here. Uh, some special things that come along. Apparently, when you have a 4-star invited, you get a division band quartet. And we're having a helicopter flyover. So, guys, you're in for quite a Memorial Day ceremony that we're real thrilled to partner with the VFW and doing. And so, uh, Manny, if you could call to attention, please. Chaplain Chris Keene, please lead us in prayer. Please go ahead and remove your headgear.
Would you please pray with me? We thank you, God, for our wonderful country. Gather now to acknowledge the courage of women and men for their protection and ultimate sacrifice for our nation. We honor them today in your name. Amen.
Cover. Now, as we face the flag, please join me in the Pledge of the Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with life and brotherhood for all. At this point, I ask our White Bear Lake area Minnesota State Senator to come forward and do the welcome. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody for being here today. We're going to gather at the Union Cemetery, honoring the brave men and women who gave their lives in service to our country. On this Memorial Day, we remember not just their sacrifice, but their stories, their families, and the freedom we cherish because of them. It's a privilege to stand with all of you in this place of remembrance, in the heart of our White Bear Lake community. Let us begin today with gratitude, reflection, and a deep sense of purpose. Thank you for letting me be here with you today.
And part of what we're celebrating and doing the memorial is this is obviously the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. And so part of my honor group in the front row on the right are a sample of our Vietnam vets. Let's give them a hand. The next two that I'm going to introduce, I'm not sure which the sequence should be. So I'm going to be a little audacious here. We have here in our presence what is known in the veterans community as a White Bear Lake legend. This is Colonel Retired Ed, commonly known as Bud Nakasone. For the few that do not know him, he witnessed the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And as America was putting Japanese Americans into what was considered a POW camp in California, but not doing the same for Germans, I don't understand at all. When he was old enough, he joined the U.S. Army and went into a special program to increase his ability to speak and write Japanese, and was an interpreter at the end of World War II, helping us win the war. And then the very important stage after that, you need to have a good transition and in the occupation of Japan. So let's give this man another hand. And then, of course, we have his son, 4-star General Paul Nakasone, White Bear Lake High School graduate, our own general. The Legion commander I'll introduce later, but we've got the auxiliary president, Pam Farrell. Pam, okay. We've got Sons of the American Legion. We got John here with in the blue shirt, John Stokovich and his wife Diane. We've got then we get into the VFW, my commander Bob Kreminga. Auxiliary President Sarah McPhee. Representative Brian Kern. There you are. Thank you. Wonderful. Good to see you. And then Mayor Dan Elizabeth had marched in the parade. Dan, are you here in the crowd? I know he was with his kids. So anyway, glad he was there. We have the Mankato Fire Department, Police Department here. Thank you for being here with us today, guys. Former White Bear Mayor and Post member Jerry Briggs, and you'll be hearing from him in a little bit. Former Mayor and Auxiliary Member Joe Emerson, my buddy. Where are you, Joe? Yeah. And then in the seats of honor where they can see things really well is the cousins of the guy killed that we'll be talking about later on that we're doing the memorial of. And so we have Kathy Altman and then Marlene Craig. So thank you for joining, and their families. Thank you, thank you. We also have the honor of having not just a normal trumpeter, but the principal trumpeter from the Minnesota Orchestra here with us today, Manny Laureano. Thank you, Manny. 34th ID Saxophone Quartet under Sergeant First Class Hanson. You heard them earlier. And if I'm not mistaken, I wasn't there. Did we have some drummers in the parade? All right. So we had the White Bear Lake High School drummers. I believe they were Corin, Braden, and Max. So very cool to have a military parade to have that. Okay. And every veteran here, thank you for your service, and thank you for coming to remember those that we've lost in combat. Now, I'm watching my time very closely because we have a special event at 10:15. I can't goof up. All right. As a nation, on Memorial Day was born out of necessity. Today is the day we pay homage to all those who served in the military and did not come home. Although this is a holiday, Memorial Day is a day of solemn contemplation over the cost of our freedom. As we pay tribute to the monumental loss of life in defense of this great nation, we also recognize the courageousness and honor of military service. We are not only remembering the fallen, but we're remembering that nothing comes without cost. Our freedom was paid for at great expense. Let us keep the memory of our fallen alive. We're here because of the sacrifices our veterans have given to our country and its people. This is meaningless without remembrance. Today, we are paying special attention and recognition to one of our White Bear Lake to our White Bear Lake Vietnam veterans, as we said, and to Major Curtis Feisner, one of White Bear Lake's own. At this point, I asked Major Jerry Briggs, Jerry Briggs, Vietnam, Korean War veteran and member of the VFW, to come forward and read the names of those that we've lost from our area. Jerry? Sir.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. In the not so distant past, there was a high-ranking military officer who spoke of the importance of reminding us of reminding us of the war dead. His charge was to read out loud the name of every veteran who was killed in action, and in doing so, we would memorialize that person's name for all time. I know all time is a long time, but we've been doing this for the last 2 or 3 years, and it's rewarding for us. It's very humbling for us to use this occasion to bring these names back forward to all of you, and I'm sure that those of you that have been in White Bear Lake for any length of time will recognize a lot of these names. There are 37 individuals from White Bear Lake area who have lost their lives, killed in action, or lost at sea. Operation Iraq Freedom, Eldon D. Arkand, Jacob T. Vanderbosch. Operation Enduring Freedom, Philippines, Curtis D. Feisner. Vietnam, Jerry N. Ellis, Gerald P. Smith, Alan R. Meldal, John F. Riley, Jerome F. Lavasser, James F. Uttermark, Ronald A. Krebsbach. Korean War, Gerald R. Larson, John W. Morris, Joseph J. Kostuch. World War II, William A. Reed, John H. Richardson, Verns J. Campbell, Richard R. Houle, Thomas C. Ribel, William F. Carth, Richard E. Dufresne, Roger J. Benson, Warren G. Oakes, Donald G. McCary, Robert G. Matlin, Alan R. Niederkorn, Robert I. Anderson, William G. White, Edward H. Brandel, Ron J. Perrin, Douglas A. Chambers, Elmer T. Marcotte, Robert G. Green, Kenneth E. Lair, Marvin N. Hanlos, Robert Speckman, William F. Guzzi, and World War I, who our VFW is named after, Ernest W. Zimmer. Have a moment of silence. We will never forget, we will always remember.
Thank you, Jerry. At this point, I'd asked American Legion Post 168 Bill Malicious to come up forward, and he will be talking a little bit about Curtis Feisner. Bill?
Today is a day of remembrance. It is a day to honor those who lost their lives in service to our country. It is a day for our community to solemnly reflect upon the sacrifice that those who once walked among us gave so valiantly. Major Curtis D. Feisner was one such man, and it is only befitting that we should honor him today. He grew up in the small village of Birchwood, a graduate of White Bear Lake High School. He went on to graduate from West Point Military Academy and ultimately to serve his country as a U.S. Army Special Operations aviator. Major Feistner lost his life over the sea in the southern Philippines, along with his crew, supporting Operation Enduring Freedom in February of 2002. To him and his crew, we should be eternally grateful, for it is through the dedication, devotion, and selfless service of Major Feistner and all those like him who paid the ultimate price for our freedom that we can truly realize the cost of freedom. For yesterday is gone, and tomorrow is yet a mystery. But today is truly a gift we must never forget.
Flying over you is a Chinook helicopter like Major Curtis Feistner flew. If you want to talk about coincidences, we've got a White Bear Lake general speaking to you today. We're talking about a White Bear Lake High School graduate general. We're talking about a White Bear Lake High School soldier killed in this operation. And the pilot of that Chinook graduated from White Bear Lake High School. When the request came in, he says, Memorial Day or not, I'm flying. And yes, I'll fly a Chinook because that's what Curtis flew. His father is buried in the St. Mary's Cemetery. And when I talked to him, he thanked us for the VFW for putting the flag out on him. His dad was a VFW member. It's all coming together. This is awesome. All right, at this point in time, I'm going to ask if those that have a chair to sit down. I'm really not saying the general's speech is going to be too long. Go ahead and sit down. General, but for those in the front row, this will help those in the next rows to be able to see. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, General Paul Nakasone, as we said, grew up in White Bear Lake. He four-star general, retired. Native of White Bear Lake and the son of Bud and Mary Nakasone. He's a former career military leader for over 3 decades. Paul served within the United States, the Republic of Korea, Iraq, and Afghanistan. He's one of 4 officers who designed and developed U.S. Cyber Command, bringing the dominance of cyberspace to the Pentagon. Paul concluded his career as director of the National Security Agency and commander of U.S. Cyber Command. Paul grew up in our town, attended Memorial Day remembrances here in the cemetery, remembers when Cup and Cone first opened, and counts his closest friends from those here in our city. Paul now serves as OpenAI's board of directors and leads Vanderbilt University's Institute of National Security, where he's focused on building the next generation of a national security professionals to succeed in a dynamic global environment. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome White Bear Lake's own Paul Nakasone.
Gary, thank you very much, and thank you for the $2.5 billion. It was always good to have a Minnesotan in the Pentagon. Good morning. Wow, what an incredible day. The weather, the circumstances, the friends and family that have come together today. So today is Memorial Day. A day not of celebration, but of solemn remembrance. A day to honor those who gave everything in defense of our nation and our freedoms. We gather here as a town, as families, as Americans, to remember the fallen, to express gratitude, and to remind ourselves of the values those that gave their last full measure of devotion died protecting. So as Gary recounted, I was raised here in the neighborhoods and schools of White Bear Lake. The values I carried into military service were first taught to me here by my parents, my teachers, my coaches, my neighbors. It is here that many have gone forth to serve. Some returned to a warm embrace, others returned draped in the flag they were sworn to defend. Today we speak their names, we remember their faces, and we ensure their legacies endure in our city that we call home. Among those we honor today is one of our own, Major Curtis Feisner. A native of White Bear Lake, a son, a patriot. If you've had a chance, please go back and read the incredible article that Shannon Granholm wrote last week in the White Bear Press about Curtis Feisner. He attended and excelled at the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York, a 1990 graduate. He served with distinction as an Army officer and pilot. He flew with the Army's elite Special Operations Aviators, the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers. You know, within the Special Operations community, the Rangers compete against the SEALs, who compete against Delta Force, but no one competes against the Night Stalkers. They are simply the best rotary wing aviators anywhere on the planet, bar none. And Curtis was a leader in the 160th. He was just 34 years old. He was a mentor, a quiet warrior. He carried with him the very best of what our city instills in its people: resilience, integrity, and courage. Today on this Memorial Day, we pause to remember him, his service, his sacrifice, and the family and loved ones he left behind. Let us never forget that White Bear Lake, though small in size, has given so much in times of conflict. Curtis Feisner is proof of that sacrifice. This also marks the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. For many in this crowd today, those years still linger vividly in memory. Vietnam was a conflict that divided a nation, but also defined a generation. Over 58,000 Americans lost their lives in Vietnam. Many were barely adults. White Bear Lake sent its sons and daughters to Southeast Asia, and like towns across America, we mourn the loss of some who never came home. The names that were read today, the Levasseurs, the Hools, the Perrins, they're unique names that come distinctly from our hometown. The pain of the Vietnam War, its costs and its scars, was not just borne out in the battlefield, but in the quiet grief of families and the empty seats at dinner tables right here in our town. For too long, many of those who served in Vietnam returned to a nation that failed to honor their sacrifice. Let me clearly say now, we see you, we honor you, we are grateful for your service. So Memorial Day teaches us that freedom is never free. Every headstone in Arlington, every name etched in stone here, every family who sets an empty plate at the table, they are all remind us that liberty has a price. It is a price paid in far-off lands, often in harsh climates, in the jungles of Vietnam, in the deserts of Iraq, and the mountains of Afghanistan. It's a price paid by men like Curtis Feisner, who traded the promise of tomorrow so that others could have one today. It is a price borne by the mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, cousins, those who live with the loss for the rest of their lives. The least we can do, the very least, is to remember. Our city has never stood on the sidelines. In every American conflict, from the Civil War to the War on Terror, White Bear Lake has answered the call. Our high schools have sent graduates into uniforms. Our families have welcomed home service members with flags and prayers. Our churches have held vigils for the fallen. We are a city shaped not only by its lakes and traditions, but by its people who believe in duty, service, and sacrifice. Whether on the battlefield in France or in the mountains of Afghanistan, someone from White Bear Lake was there, doing their part for freedom. That is a legacy we must pass on to the next generation. Today, we also honor our Gold Star families, those who have lost a loved one in military service. Your sacrifice is immeasurable. You live with the quiet ache of memory, of that memory every day. Please know that White Bear Lake remembers that we honor not just your loved one's death, but most importantly, their life. You are a permanent part of this community's history and its heart. To all Gold Star families here today, we are with you today and always. You know, I served in uniform for nearly 4 decades across 5 continents in peace and war, in war zones and in command centers. I've seen firsthand the courage of young Americans, some just 18 or 19, standing guard in the face of danger, refusing to let fear dictate their actions. Today's generation of service members is no different than the ones that I witnessed riding in the parade as World War I veterans, or those Korean veterans that were carrying the flag, or those World War II veterans that were here at our cemetery, or those Vietnam veterans that were here coming back from the war. They are principled, brave, and dedicated. They come from cities like ours. They wear the uniform with honor. And yes, some of them do not return. That is why Memorial Day matters, not as a holiday, but as a promise to remember. Across America stand memorials to the fallen, cold stone etched with names, units, dates. But their stories are not cold. They are vibrant, full of life, promise, and sacrifice. Here in White Bear Lake, we must ensure that the stories behind those names are never lost. Every veteran buried in our local cemeteries, every plaque and flag deserves our remembrance. Let us commit to telling their stories to our children, to each other, and to those who visit our town seeking to understand its soul. We live in uncertain times. Threats from abroad, polarization at home, technologies that both empower and endanger. But in the face of uncertainty, we find strength in legacy. The men and women we honor today, those who fought and died, remind us what unites us: patriotism, sacrifice, community. These are the values that endure. And they are the values we must protect, not just with weapons, but with words, choices, and character. Memorial Day is not a spectator event. It's a call to action, a reminder that freedom requires participation, and we must visit the graves, learn the names, share their stories. Support our veterans, care for the wounded, comfort the grieving. Fly the flag not as a decoration, but as a declaration. If you're a teacher, teach the meaning of sacrifice. If you're a parent, tell your children who Curtis Feisner was and why he matters. And if you're a student, understand that the privileges you enjoy were brought with sacrifice. I now ask that we take a moment of silence for Major Curtis Feisner, for those we lost in Vietnam 50 years ago, and for all American service members, men and women, who gave their lives in defense of our nation. I stand here today not just as a veteran, but as your neighbor, your fellow Minnesotan, your friend. The story of White Bear Lake is inseparable from the story of American service and sacrifice. That should make us somber. That should not make us somber, but that should make us proud. Let us go forward today, not forgetting, not minimizing, but honoring. For if we remember them well, they are never truly gone. May God bless the fallen. May God bless White Bear Lake. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, General. We are now going to have a song called Danny Boy. For those in law enforcement, fire departments, this will not be new to you. For those that have deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan, this will not be new, because like when I was in Afghanistan, and as the hearse of a fallen angel, as we call them, went by, they were playing Danny Boy by either a sax or a bagpipe or a trumpet. At this time, we have the honor of hearing Danny Boy from one of Minnesota's best. And now we'll hear from the 34th Division Saxophone Quartet, a song called Mansions of the Lord. Good time to reflect what the general has said. Thank you. At this point, I ask the American Legion and VFW Auxiliary presidents to lay the wreaths in front of to honor the fallen. Presidents? Honor Guard, please fire the salute for the fallen soldiers. At this point, I ask Chaplain Chris Kling to provide the closing prayer. Uncover.
Please join me in prayer. Lord, may you give peace and comfort to the families whose loved ones died so we can be free. May you give peace and comfort to the families whose loved ones died so we can be free. May you give peace and comfort to the families whose loved ones died so we can be free. May you give peace and comfort to the families whose loved ones died so we can be free. May you give peace and comfort to the families whose loved ones died so we can be free. May you give peace and comfort to the families whose loved ones died so we can be free. May you give peace and comfort to the families whose loved ones died so we can be free. May you give peace and comfort to the families whose loved ones died so we can be free. May you give peace and comfort to the families whose loved ones died so we can be free. May you give peace and comfort to the families whose loved ones died so we can be free. May you give peace and comfort to the families whose loved ones died so we can be free. May you give peace and comfort to the families whose loved ones died so we can be free. May you give peace and comfort to the families whose loved ones died so we can Help us to honor their memory by responsibly working, volunteering, serving, voting, and praying for an America that lives up to its ideals. Amen.
Once again, thanks to our Vietnam vets, and thank you for joining us in the memorial for our own Major Curtis Feisty. Before we march out, I want to thank you all for joining us today in today's tribute, honoring those who cannot be with us. I'd ask you to keep the military men and women and the sacrifices they made close to your heart throughout the day and the rest of the year. Please join us in the next phase of our celebrations and honoring those that have served at the American Legion on 3rd Street, downtown White Bear Lake, for some camaraderie, singing of the service songs with live music, okay, at a free hot dog lunch. In addition, at 2 o'clock at the VFW Park next to the VFW Post 1782, at 2 o'clock is a ceremony you're invited to for our comrades lost at sea. So thank you very much for joining us, and may God bless.